was a hypo, and I'm like, welcome to Comics League. I am Jared, and I'm here with Britt. What's up, Britt?
Hello, hello.
And we are here with Jeremy Adams. Welcome to the show, man.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
It was inevitable because on the show that Britt and I do, I'm making her read your entire Green Lantern run from start to finish.
Oh my gosh.
I'm trying to get her into Green Lantern. So it's like, I figured go with this because a praise I always give it is like, it's one of those runs where I could just give it to someone that just started on Green Lantern. It's like, because you explain it in a way, it starts off in a way that like, okay, you know tangentially who Hal Jordan is,
right?
But like you explain the small minutia details in such a way that like someone like Britt can understand.
Well, that's because I was figuring it out. It's so funny because, you know, my first credit on television is Green Lantern, the animated series.
Yeah.
And I was heavily reading Jeff's,
yeah,
you know, and then Pete Tomasi was doing Green Lantern Corps, which I loved.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so heavy, the mythology.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And so I really had to just blow it up so I could start over a little bit.
Yeah.
Morgan take over Green Lantern Corps, so he's diving more deeply into the lore. I'm like, great, have fun, you know. But I'm doing my own thing on Green Lantern, which is really fun. And with issue 600, if everybody's caught up, the last issue 32, I think, before we flip over to 600, which somebody asked me, they're like, how did you get to 600? I'm like, I didn't. Somebody over there is a bean counter at DC, and they're keeping track of things. But Kai will take a bigger role for a little bit while Hal does things. He'll still be in the book, but Hal's story is pretty mega. So I'm kind of working toward that. And Kyle's going to have we're going to do kind of a fun side journey with him for a bit.
I swear. So when I read the issue and I was like, okay, he's going to propose to Carol. I'm like, oh, come on.
And by the way, you got to understand, I've tried to marry off like Barry Allen again. And, and I get a lot of editorial go, nope, can't be married. I'm like, you guys are killing me. So but I'm a dog with a bone that's kind of like, all right, we're gonna work this out. So, because like I'm even staring over here, I have like the Amazing Spider-Man, and that marriage issue was such a big deal, and that was such a fun thing. There's some of these characters been around for ages, and Hal in particular, because they pulled the will you won't they for so long with Carol and him. And I just think there was an issue I wrote with Barry Allen and him the first time, and it was just that moment where everybody was talking about legacy characters. And I had just finished writing, you know, The Flash with Wally, but the spotlight was on legacy characters. And then the Justice League had disbanded. And it was just a chance to like, you know, it's got to be weird for these guys that are kind of the mainstay superheroes to look at their sidekicks having more mature relationships. And like, you know, Dick and Babs, Wally and Linda, like all those people. And I just keep thinking like, oh man, you know, they've got to have a revelation, and Hal having that revelation of like, man, I got to grow up a little bit. And with Carol and with the stuff I want to do with Carol, I'm very excited about, because last issue, the 8 aspects of love, and trying to move that,
I love that,
further away from kind of the Lantern origin back to the original origin with the Star Sapphire. Yeah, I'm very excited.
I loved where she goes, did she ruin my engagement? And you see like the purple, it's like, oh, she's pissed.
Yeah.
Oh,
I love that. Somebody asked, isn't Barry married to Iris? I guess not. In the
with
1
DC,
minute war,
who knows though? They keep on doing this stuff.
In the 1 minute war, I had him propose essentially, but then they said, oh, you can't say marriage. And they even like photoshopped out his ring or her ring in the last issue. It's very weird, but you know,
okay. So,
I wish they were my action figures. They're not. I gotta play by the rules.
Hell yeah. But yeah, so to start off, why don't you, I want to ask you, so what got you into comics, into this whole world of superheroes?
So my father, when I was a little kid, he drew some comic books. I knew in the back of my head. He had drawn for DC this book called Ghosts with Dr. 13. He'd only done a couple issues, and then my parents were divorced when I was very early on. And like all divorced kids that don't see their father that much, I obviously took on the attributes that my father loved, right? So he loved martial arts, and he loved comic books and movies. And of course, I love those things until it becomes your own thing. It wasn't until years later I worked on Young Justice. I wrote an episode of Young Justice with my friend Jim, that I found out Greg Weisman, who is kind of the main progenitor of Young Justice, had written some of the Captain Atom in the 80s that my dad had drawn. So my dad had drawn probably a total of 12 issues. Comics. I didn't know he drew that until much later. But yeah, so obsessed with comic books as a kid, obsessed with superheroes. When I was a kid, it was Underoos and Super Friends, and then Super Powers was this action figure line. That's mine from that's the best Christmas present I ever got. And it was like the greatest thing ever. And as a kid, where you didn't have a lot of superhero things, you just reached for everything that you could that was superheroes. So I was probably the only one I knew that was collecting comics. I had like one other friend. We didn't have a comic book store in our town. We had one for 1 year one time. It was the greatest year. But yeah, just been obsessed with comics. And you know, I was ripe for that Bronze Age of, like, I think my dad, I still have it. It's like a beaten up trade of the Dark Phoenix saga was huge for me.
There you go.
Peter David's Hulk. I was huge in Mark Grunwald's Captain America and Iron Man around the Armor Wars time. I love Ditko stuff. I love Blue Beetle. I love Batman. But I just grew up reading comics like crazy, but I didn't think it was, I didn't know how to get in. Like, I had no idea. And so I went into film, moved out here to do film and television. I did a lot of animated stuff. And then I was working on Supernatural, and I get a call that's like, Dan DiDio wants to see you and a bunch of other animation writers at the DC offices. And I was like, holy crap, this is it. And I've been trying. I like Mike Martz. I once pitched a Batwing thing when I was an assistant at a toy company to Mike Martz. That was like the closest I had gotten. I had written on Green Lantern animated series, and I had started doing DC animated stuff, like a lot of DC. But went to see Dan DiDio, and he told all of us that we were taking over. We were going to write all this stuff for 5G. And then the story goes, he got fired. Warner Brothers got bought out, but my name was still on a list.
There you
go. And my buddy Mike Cotton was the editor, and I think asked my friend Tim Sheridan, like, hey, you know, I have this list of animation writers. Do you know any of them? And he's like, oh yeah, I know Jeremy's great. So I did a couple backups for Mike Cotton during the Future State, which was of all the ideas that had come out of 5G. And so, you know, I did like 2 backup issues. One was in Suicide Squad and the Superman World at War, and then one was in Suicide Squad Future State, and one was in the Superman World at War backups. And Mike Cotton afterwards just said, hey, do you have any ideas for the Flash? And I was like, dude, I'm a nerd of a certain age. I have ideas for everything.
Yeah, you know? Exactly. It's like, so how many do you want?
Yeah. And so then he said, okay, you get to take over the Flash. And at that point, what I recall was, you know, first of all, Wally had been the human pinata for a long time.
That's an excellent way of putting it. Oh my God.
And he had just come off of Future State, which a really good friend of mine had written the thing, but it was like famine took over Wally, and he was, and I was, oh my gosh. And I remember I had taken over, and everybody was kind of like an abused person. Everybody was just like, oh, they're going to ruin him again. They're going to ruin him again.
Oh yeah. In their defense, Heroes in Crisis just happened.
I know. And I remember my first podcast for a comic book, it was Lost in Comics. And I remember saying to the dude, like, I was like, I promise you, as long as I'm writing Wally, he's going to be okay. Like, that was my mandate. And I had to get the word out, and no one believed me. Oh. And then it just slowly, and I knew I was going to try to retcon Heroes in Crisis. And I had tried it a couple different ways. And even when I did it the first time, I was like, I got to retcon it more. Like, I originally I was like, I need to make sure not only like
you have to see the body.
I was like, okay, I'm going to make it so it was Savitar. That makes sense. That'd be cool. And then I was like, they were like, but I want to save all the characters. And they're like, no. And I was like, are you kidding me? And I knew I inevitably ended up doing what I wanted to do in the first bit, which was, if in Heroes in Crisis, Blue Beetle and Booster Gold, they basically, if I'm reading it right, at the end of it, they get a clone of Wally and they throw the clone down. And I was like, but why didn't they do that with all the other bodies? And
exactly.
so that was originally my intent, was to have Gold Beetle. I wanted to have this really funny frame of Gold Beetle like throwing the clone bodies out of the gold bug onto the ground. But I inevitably got to do that at the end of my run, because I was like, no, I got to save them all. It's not a superhero until you save them all. And that was my mandate. I was like, no, this elephant in the room, I don't want to start it out like that. I want to make
You're
sure.
You're clawing your way back. No, I gotta save him. I gotta save him.
I mean, it was like 3 times I retconned it. I felt bad, but I was like, I gotta like tie it all the way up.
All right. So Britt, do you have a question you want to add?
No, not right now.
All right, but
Britt, you're just waiting. You're just waiting.
Yeah.
She's waiting for the right moment. Britt knows when to strike. She's like an archer from Lord of the Rings. But yeah, so I'll ask this, because here's the interesting thing is, like, going off with with Wally and stuff. So was there an editorial mandate saying fix him, or was it just you took that on your own initiative for that?
No, there was no mandate. In fact, the first time I brought it up, the Heroes of Gods, I got some pushback.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to kind of negotiate. Originally, it was going to be, Wally was doing this quantum leap thing where he was leaping into different speedsters, and I was going to have him leap into Barry's body at the time of Heroes in Crisis. And Barry was going, and he was going to realize, I know what day it is, and he was going to run and save him in Barry's body. I thought that would have been cool. Cool. But they were like negative. So I was like, all right. So I just kept going. I did have a distinct impression, and I knew that my editor, I knew what Warner Brothers was like at the time. It was very unstable. And I was kind of like, I bet, if I was a betting man, I was thinking, I think that guy's going to leave before I do. Like, it was the height of hubris, So I kept writing toward it, hoping that was true, and I kept thinking, okay, either they won't let me do it, but I'm going to just write like it's going to happen and see it happen. And so it did. But I was lucky, and it was very chaotic. And I think because I was turning in a book on time, people were pretty receptive to it. The bar was very low in terms of sales for that book at the time. But as I was writing, it kept gradually getting higher, and then it plateaued. And then around that time, they kicked me off the book and gave me Green Lantern, but it was like, and I was so bitter about it. But like a week later,
we all were.
But after that 1 Minute War started, and that sold out, and the next one sold out, and the next one sold out, and I felt kind of like vindicated a little bit, yeah. And the Green Lantern, it wasn't that I didn't want to do Green Lantern. I was just so bummed about leaving Wally. I had become wildly attached, and literally the first thing I said was, are the kids going to be okay? Like, I was just so like weirdly attached to it. So in some ways it's probably good that I left.
Follow-up question: how did the conversation, okay, so you're doing Green Lantern, how about Aquaman?
The Aquaman thing came because I really enjoy writing comics. Like, this is great. And Aquaman was never something on my scorecard. It wasn't. I didn't volunteer. I didn't think I would. I told Jeff Johns this the other day. I was like, I didn't realize I had a punch card that I was just going through exact order that Jeff did. And I go, so
buddy of mine and I were like, all he has to do is do JSA, and he has recreated it.
And then I'll just start my own company. Aquaman came. They asked me to do. It was like, I don't think it was a World's and Finest. It was like a Brave and the Bold or something with Miss Martian and Jackson, pardon me. And I said, oh, I want to do this thing with this. There's the red. I've been doing stuff with Maxine and the red, and I doing stuff with the green and Green Lantern. I was like, there's no blue. We should do the blue. The blue's an elemental force that controls all the water. And one of the editors like, you can't use that. That's too big of an idea. You have to do that. That's something you pitch with Aquaman. I'm like, great. So I like texted my editor. I was like, hey, I got this pitch, and Paul was like, I think he was the one that was like, let's destroy Atlantis. I was like, what? And but then I had this kind of grand plan of what I wanted to do with sending Aquaman away and this kind of cadre of strange people. And people were so mad at me because they thought I had like killed Mara or whatever. And I'm like,
yeah,
dude.
immediately I'm like, she's amazing. That's like in a Superman story where they kill Lois. She's gonna be back.
Well, also, like, if you read anything I do, I care so much about, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah,
like,
I
I
know.
don't,
It's
so,
like it's one of the clear cases of like, let the man cook.
so it was
Also,
really
it's like
fun.
it's the other thing that I noticed. What's really it's like when I see spoiler alert,
Yeah.
Mira's mom is
Yeah.
older Andy, and I'm like, oh yeah, she never really been on canon. I forgot about that.
I know.
I was like, wait a minute, she hasn't.
I mean, I stumbled upon that, and I cannot tell you the glee
Yeah,
that I had realizing, like, are you telling me there's no one's ever even said Mira's mom's name in all of the comics? Are you kidding me? Like, it was funny because I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. Like, this is going to be a great switcheroo, you know? So that was great. That was really fun. And having her as like kind of an arch nemesis now. And I don't know. I'm like, what's out right now? What can I say? But yeah, it's really fun. Really fun.
It was really cool. It's like one of those occasions where I'm like, oh, I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, because I thought she had, because her father has shown up in
yeah. Her father had, but I was digging everywhere.
I was like, her mom
has got to be there. We got to make sure. We got to make sure. And it was funny. I don't know. One of somebody said, oh, they said something else with her first appearance. I was like, no, when she shows up in Aquaman is her first appearance as Andrina, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's fun when you get to create a character, especially a character that is linked to a huge mythology. It's been going on a long time. It's incredibly satisfying as a nerd. The other thing I love doing is taking characters that I don't necessarily connect with and trying to figure out a way to connect with. Like Mr. Terrific, I didn't really understood, and then I was like, oh no, he's Buckaroo Banzai, and I was like, I'm gonna just write him like Buckaroo Banzai, and he's got and I've got like a list of all the companies he has. Or like people were really down on Teen Lantern, and I was like, yeah, but like if I can make her friends with Philip Kennedy Johnson's Construct Lantern, and then they could have this kind of like fun relationship. It was like trying to find ways to make myself like characters that maybe I don't connect with. It was really fun.
Yeah. So speaking of characters that have a large mythology, with your experience writing Superman, I wanted to ask, so how does that differ from doing characters like, let's say, Green Lantern or like Aquaman? Because obviously, yes, Aquaman and Green Lantern are like big characters, but Superman, like, does the pressure like really ramp up?
Yeah. Superman, Batman, any of the Trinity, Wonder Woman, even on the Marvel side, I can't imagine. Like, I always think I would love to do a Captain America or Daredevil run, or like I would love to do Daredevil run, but I always like, gosh, I'd be so scared because Daredevil is they've had consistently amazing runs. But Superman, to me, the North Star of Superman is Christopher Reeve's Superman movie in a lot of ways. I used to watch the George Reeves movies and all the animated stuff, obviously. The books were big, but the fact that he's so hopeful and he looks for the best in people is great, especially for somebody at that power. I think, I love Smallville. I love the way that John Schneider as Clark's dad, that relationship built him out as this kind of like just real human grown up to and you meet these people all the time. I wish I could say that I'm like that all the time, but they're almost just altruistic all the time. My wife's like that. They're always looking for the best in people, and they move forward with that opinion. And it's not dissimilar to how I feel about Wally. Like, Wally's goofy, but to me, Wally's the most overpowered being in the DC universe. But his problem is he's so empathetic that he'll slow down, and that's when he gets conked in the head by a boomerang, And I think Superman is so powerful, but his empathy. The other thing I love about Superman, I love the alter ego of Clark as a reporter. That's something that if I got more time or a book, I would love to do more of him investigating.
Because that's not really done.
No, and that would be really fun to me, is him, because imagine how undercover reporting you could be if you're invulnerable. like you don't have to worry about nothing, And by the way, when I was growing up, my dad had given me like the greatest Superman stories ever told, and some of the other ones. Like I have, this is one of my really old ones. Have you seen this one? This is an old
wow,
Superman.
that is old. Wow.
And it has these great old, golden age and silver age stories in them, black and white, but they're so crazy. Like there's nothing, I can't tell you, those golden age covers or more silver age, I guess, covers are like the craziest covers of all comic books. And I love them. They make my head spin. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to read this. Lois turned into an ape, but they're still in love, Yeah,
exactly. All right, so Robert brings up an interesting fact. Okay, so I got to bring this up. So you want to hear a hilarious Green Lantern fact? I recently learned this. So have you seen the Batman Ninja versus the League movie?
I only saw the first one. I saw the first one. I didn't see the sequel.
Right. So the second one. So Jessica Cruz is in that. So it's
really?
Not a spoiler. But here's the funny part. So I looked up the special features. Yeah. This is one of the things, and this is one thing that I'm glad your run fixed. So the thing is, so it says that, so the character designer says that like DC requested I use Jessica Cruz, so I did some research into the character. This made me burst out laughing in the middle of my room. He says, and I saw she had a sidekick named Simon Baz. I'm like, previous to you, I'm like, yeah, he was kind of treated, because it's like Jessica has like a lot of stuff going on, and I love her. She next to Hal, she's my favorite Green Lantern, but Simon doesn't really get a lot to do.
Yeah, and he doesn't, and so as I was writing, it was supposed to be a Hal-centric book, and then all these other lanterns started coming in, and you try to give them as much time as you can, but it got too big. I mean, not too big, but like luckily that's Morgan's venue. He gets to do Green Lantern Corps now, and I can go back to just like focusing on one lantern at a time, because Simon was one that I wasn't as familiar with. I was more familiar with Jess just because I had written her in like Lego stuff. And I liked her. They put her in a lot of things. My friend had written the Fatal Five animated movie, which I thought was really good with her. And she has a good hook, right? Is like that kind of crippling fear. But Simon's one of those that I wish I had more time with. I wanted him to have a good hero moment, because at the end of Jeff Thorne's run, there was a lot of dangling threads. There was like, Kelly was in a coma. Simon was in some sort of like mech suit because he was paralyzed in some form. And all the characters had different things. So being able to pull them out of that a little bit and kind of reset them was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Awesome. But yeah. So Britt, do you have any, do you have any questions?
Yes, that's my test. So since you've done Green Lanterns, which is kind of a team book or an ensemble book, and then compared to, say, Aquaman or Superman as a solo focus book, which more is creatively fulfilling?
Ooh, that's a good question. So usually I always start them off as a solo book, and then they increasingly become a team book, because I can't help it. Like I'll give you an example, like Aquaman, and I'll get back to your question, but like Aquaman, I took my family to the Disney Sea Park in Tokyo. And they had the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And I was like, why isn't Captain Nemo in Aquaman? And like the next month, Captain Nemo was in Aquaman.
There you go.
I think I really like team dynamics, as long as you have a focal point of a person that you get to focus on, I guess. I would love to give you, like, I would love to get a team book just from the get-go. I haven't had that yet. It's always just been kind of a singular character and then bring people in. I really like team dynamics, but I guess so. I don't really know per se. I really find comic books to be incredibly fulfilling. They're more fulfilling than like movies and stuff, because like a movie I'll write and then it won't come out for like 2 years. Like I have a Nightfall adaptation coming out this year, but I wrote that like 3.5 years ago or something, so
wow. That far back?
It was it was right when I written it before James Gunn had come into Warner Brothers, and then that kind of stopped everything because we didn't know what was going to happen, and we really didn't think it was going to happen. And then suddenly it was like, yeah, everybody, it's happening. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I've seen it, and it's my favorite. But I think if I wrote like Superman or Batman, that would be more of a, I don't know. Like it's hard to say because the Green Lantern, when I first started, it was definitely more Hal centric, rather than a team. And even with Flash, it was more Wally centric. But then after like a year of that, you'll see, it's almost like clockwork. It's like, and then I'm gonna go check out the significant other and try to make them awesome.
It's like, hi Jessica, what's up, Kilowog?
Yeah. It's so funny.
Yeah, but about that Nightfall adaptation, I will say, I am so happy it's dividing to 3 because I'm like, there's no way you could cram that into 1.
Honestly, it's hard to say. Well, so Nightfall, Night's Quest, and Night's End, those are the 3. But even Nightfall is like, I swear it's like 80 books. So we had to be judicious, but I think it turned out really well. I can't believe how good Tim Drake looks in his like old ninja clothes like being Tim Drake, and Jean Paul is so peculiar, and it's hard R and it's violent. I'd forgotten.
Nightfall, I'm like, that kind of works when you think about it.
No, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, but so one of my so obviously, as I mentioned before, I think it was before we start recording, but whatever. But that I'm getting Brit into Green Lantern, and one of the things that like I had to tell her is one of the misconceptions I'd say about like Hal Jordan is that he's a ladies' man. And I'm like, I was wondering from you. So what do you see as like the big like misconceptions about Hal Jordan in terms of like how people see him?
It's funny. Everybody, when I started, they were like, I hate Hal Jordan. That was the big thing.
Really?
Yeah, everybody. And I think partially because sometimes Hal and a lot of these kind of Silver Age covers are just ciphers. They're just, there's not too much depth. Obviously, Jeff added a great deal of depth to him. And they've, if we're being honest, he's had kind of a problematic relational moments.
Yeah, I mean, the minute you realize he's dated Arissa, and I'm like, Arissa, you're like,
Yeah, I mean, that's when you have to say alien years are equal to 7 times, like, but yeah, I think it just comes from that kind of like fighter jock, square jawed, he's very confident. Like he's never not confident, but he's not obnoxious like Guy is, right? Like they're both incredibly confident. Guy's just tips over into, I'm an a-hole, but I own it. I just read this whole thing about how they were going to originally get Hal together with Diana. That was a big thing they were going to do.
I remember that.
Which I was like, what, really? My goal was to make him charismatic and lovable, but also realize that his heart of, I'm doing this and this is the purpose of my life, because it's kind of this weirdly tragic story. It's different than Batman or Superman. I think about this with Barry and Hal, especially because they become superheroes later on in life. And with Hal, especially if you read Rebirth, it's like, his dad dies in front of him, but it causes him to be kind of a juvenile delinquent of sorts. And then he becomes this fighter pilot and he's awesome at it, but he kind of gives that up in order, like when his mom is dying and stuff, and he gives it up. And then he's just relegated to being this test pilot because no one else would be a test pilot. And the psychology of that's really interesting to me, because he's following in his father's footsteps. And in some ways, subconsciously, he's probably thinking, I'm either fighting against the fact that, I'm angry at death. I'm going to be a better fighter pilot test pilot than my father. Or he's thinking the worst thing that can happen is I'll be with my dad again. And those are two like psychological functions that it was interesting to kind of play with. And my run was really about him growing up. He's been the leader of the Green Lantern Corps. He's had to fight Parallax, which is the greatest turn, like the greatest plot twist in all of comics, I think, is Hal Jordan as killer and then Jeff going, no, we're gonna change this. I love that. But he also was very like could do no wrong, and and we didn't have a lot of his inner thought life, and that's something I really wanted to explore, I guess.
Yeah. My next question. So one of Britt, actually, I'll have Britt. So Britt, you want to ask a question?
Well, which one were you gonna ask?
I was gonna ask about Repulse.
Do it.
Oh, you went.
All right, I'll do it. So one of the episodes that you had worked on action was the Repulse episode.
Wonder Woman. Yes. This is the Wonder Woman Superman one, right?
Yeah.
So Britt and I have to ask because we're big Superman Wonder Woman fans, and the internet knows I loathe Lois. Where do you stand on Superman and Wonder Woman together?
You're gonna hate this. You're gonna absolutely hate this. I'm sorry. I'm a Wonder Bat guy. That's how bad it is.
Come on.
Yeah. I thought the Justice League Unlimited did such a good job of fleshing them out.
And then we're ending the interview right now.
And then Dwayne McDuffie did it in the book, which I really liked. And in fact, even in that episode, I was like, I hate this. But that was the mandate in DC at the time. DC was like Superman and Wonder Woman are together, period. And they were.
Why Wonder Bat though?
You got to watch Justice League Unlimited, man.
I did. Again, my follow-up question.
So this is it. This is what it is. In the triangle that is Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, it is very much Dawson's Creek. And Dawson to me is Superman, and Joey is Wonder Woman. And therefore Pacey and Joey deserve to be together. And that's how it is in my mind. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sorry.
It could also be the fact that I loathe that animated version of Wonder Woman because it's not the comics version of Wonder Woman. It's like I found she was a little too aggressive. But then you went and you wrote. So it's really funny where then the next time I saw you writing Wonder Woman was Justice Society World War II in a universe where she eventually Superman. So it's like you can't escape that, brother.
Yeah. I know. It's the universe's joke to keep making me do that, But also
you do it so well, though.
The Justice League World War II was a really fun project to do as well, and that was a neat design too. That kind of World War II design Stan Katic did. I really like that.
That also really solidified to me. Give Wonder Woman an accent when she's being adapted, because it's like if she's coming from like an island in let's say the Mediterranean, doesn't make sense for her to have an American accent.
Yeah, I would say though. Well, I don't know. I mean, it depends on how highly educated that island is. I could see her being kind of like that, like a secret agent that knows all the different accents, like perfectly. But it's sort of like Superman knowing everything, like knowing all those words, all the languages. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but like that. I get it. I get it's funny. It's like it's such us as fans. It's so fun that we have all these kind of like. This is what I want. This is what I want. And like I said, that was the New 52, right? Like that was like, nope, that's the way it's going to be. And everybody, there's tons of people who rebelled against that. And I'm sure it will go back and forth a billion times,
Oh, it will. Trust me. Trust me. Britt and I get into daily Twitter debates with people about this.
Mistake number one.
Mistake number one, engaging on Twitter. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things where when I was watching, I'm like, so when you say you don't like it, this is why I like your writing. I didn't know that, because it's like, no, you're just writing, because so many writers that write the relationship,
right?
It's like they get kind of like spiteful about it, and they're like, oh, I want to be with Lois or something like that.
Sure.
But it's like, I mean, no, it's like, I'm assigned to write this. I'm going to write it to the best, and I respect that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, my first, when I did Green Lantern animated series, my mentor boss, Jim Krieg, I got these notes back, and he said, it was the first lesson I got as a paid writer was, if they wanted to give Hal Jordan a mustache that talks on its own, you write the best mustache that talks on its own that you can write. Like, that's the job, right? And the cool thing about comics is I have a lot of leeway. I can I can kind of like push some of my own things,
Mhm.
but I have to get them approved, and I have
Yeah.
to get them I have to get buyout, or you know, I have to get
Buy-in.
buy-in on it. And that can be hard, especially with relational stuff. With
Yeah.
relational stuff with comic books. They're very skittish about that. Obviously, like Spider-Man, how long now have they been, you know, Mary
Speaking
Jane and yeah,
really a really rocky relationship history, but
right, right,
on
right,
that, it's
right.
like it's like I noticed that like with DC, they're very scared about doing marriages or like
Yeah,
permanently
yeah,
bonding people. It's like, let me put it this way: take in the Tom King run, yeah, she's with Steve. As soon as
yeah,
he leaves, I have no doubt they're not going to be together because that's just what DC does.
yeah,
Rightly so, because I understand that like marriage and characters can limit the stories that you can tell about them, and then
yeah.
and that's reliable. It's like it's also why I think that they're always. I always see like pushback. I always hear a pushback with like Hal and Carol or something.
Right, 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 right. I mean, it's really, I mean, listen, it's easier in my mind. I think it's easier as a writer if you wanted to just start over with a relationship. Like you don't, oh, she's not there and you can start over. You know, you can tease
Mhm.
out a relationship. In any rom-com, you know, the joke in X-Files was the minute they kiss, the show's over, or
Mhm.
in Cheers or whatever. I think it's harder to write a mature relationship or and you know, I got flack on it on the, you know, with Wally and Linda. And I was
Mhm.
like, but this is this was my life at the time. You know, I have two
Mhm.
kids, I have a wonderful wife, and it comes with its own unique drama and interesting things,
Mhm.
but it's different than, you know, the Bridgerton drama. Like it's different than the push and pull of will they, won't they, you know, and that cat and mouse game, which is really fun too. I just think, you know, I think like Teen Titans, that was the big thing when it was like, here are all these young people. It's very real, like Real World, right? Like the MTV Real World, except it's with superheroes. And it was like, oh, they're all kind of dating each other, and who's going to end up with who, and blah 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 blah. And obviously, Dick Grayson, you know, the Starfire to Babs has been a thing on and off again throughout
Mhm.
time. But I really like, for like how there's, it was like, I love the idea of him coming back to town
Mhm.
and her knowing that she's in absolute trouble, you know,
She's like,
because
oh
the
no.
man she loves is in town, even though she's moved on. And it's very much like my mom when I was a
Mhm.
kid, like uh I knew, we knew there was this guy, it was her boyfriend, and she loved this guy, and we could tell she loved this guy, but he would disappear and he wouldn't come around. And it was really it was really weird, and we found out it had to do with recovery and stuff. But she ended up meeting another guy, and kind of, I think, on the intent of moving on with her life, she they were engaged.
Mhm.
And one night she was out dancing at the courthouse square where I'm from, and who happens to be playing the fiddle but the other guy. And the next day he shows up and proposes to her. Like my mom's having all this drama I don't even
Mhm.
know about as a kid, but inevitably she ended up breaking off with the other guy, and she ended up marrying the love of her life, and he's been my stepfather for years. And so to me, that's real. You know, it's that moment that Hal realized, you know, I have to let her go. And if it
Mhm.
happens, it happens. And on the flip side, it's Carol trying to, you know, one of my mandates was like, how can we make Carol more of her own character? How can we make her so she's not the girlfriend of Hal Jordan? And so when we were at Comic-Con, Paul, my editor, and you know, Mark Wade and I were talking, and he's like, well, what lantern can we use for the Justice League? And it was like, what if we used Carol instead? Like, what if we give her more of a, you know, a platform to present herself as a superheroine and just really push into that? And that's kind of some of the stuff I'm doing in the book too, with like
Yeah.
the idea of these other things. And yeah, I don't know, I'm rambling, sorry.
I love it, man.
I see tons of questions. I'm happy to answer whatever.
It's all good. So, Britt, ask a question. Come on. You've been quiet the entire episode.
That's
Okay,
because I'm
well, I have.
rambling. That's because I'm talking, Britt. I'm
It's
Oh
all
sorry.
no,
good. It's all
you're
good.
okay. So I have two then.
Yeah,
All right, go ahead.
So in Justice League Action, in the repost
yeah,
episode, there's a line. It's that Diana says that it's nice to have someone who likes you for being you.
right.
So with that, and why Jared and I like the pairing, or that it has fans, is looking at the perspective of diversity, looking at the perspective of being true to yourself.
Mhm.
And especially when a lot of times it's really with Superman that, that Kal-El part is ignored. So
Mhm.
with Diana, a lot of times he can be Clark, Superman, and Kal at all in one.
Yeah, no,
So
I get that. I mean, that's a
and
great hook.
and also with the pairing, it goes from, both of them in the spectrum of immigrants or a refugee, that outsider outlook of life. So, well, the question is basically, did you have any type of reference to, to write that line, because that really emphasized the relationship itself?
It's so long ago, but usually what happens if I'm directed to do like Clark and Diana, then I, as a writer, it's incumbent upon me to make that as real as it can be. So trying to find the perspective that's real, and I have to believe it, right? I
Right.
have to believe it. And that line in particular, though I don't remember writing it at the time, I mean that to me, even when you're saying it, it's like that to me is how you make that relationship work. It's the fact that they both know who there's no I don't like Clark, I like Superman type thing.
Right.
It's just, this is who I am and this is who I am, and I like you for who you are, and there's no hiding anything,
Exactly.
right?
That is
Good.
that.
So many wrong, brother.
Well,
Right.
and I get it, but I also get the other one too. So like
I
as a
know.
writer, it's important to go, okay, these are the confines that I'm working in, and that happens with comic books all the time. For me, all the time, they're like, you can use this character, but you can't do this with it, or you can't use this character because we don't. I mean, it happens all the time. People have dibs on characters, so I have to use another character. Then if I use that character, how can I make that character work within and make it feel real as I can? It's a very tricky business, this
Mhm.
comic book thing, and you're dealing with DC that has how many continuity changes? you know,
They
a
reboot every
lot,
5 years, it
a
seems.
lot. But
Every two.
they've been holding strong for a while. We've been holding strong for a while. DC's been having a great moment in the sun, so it's exciting to be part of it.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what, Britt? Ask question two.
Okay, so now for the nickname of in Tomorrowverse, Wonder Woman led the charge basically in the Justice Society movie,
Yeah.
in Crisis, War World,
Yeah.
and she was the motivation for that for Superman.
Yeah.
Um, but she also coined the name Shakespeare. Again, it's a lot of, even though you don't like the relationship, with that, it's still parts within Justice action and Tomorrowverse that really resonated with the fans of the pairing, but also, you know, you really nailed the relationship, because that is what we love about them. That Diana and Clark admire each other, but certain things like that, small things, really, makes the relationship real to us. So with that, calling him Shakespeare because he's a writer, was that just off the fly, mandated? Who actually came up with that?
That might have been. I'm trying to think if Megan came up with it or not, or Jim did. I'm not entirely sure the Shakespeare part of it. I know that as we were writing it, we knew. I mean, she's the dynamic leader of that particular thing. She's the one who calls people to heroism in that film.
Mhm.
And I just keep thinking about like the end. There's the great moment. I remember thinking like, you need a bombastic score, and they were like, no, we're not going to do. The moment where Superman starts leaping down and
Yeah.
destroying all those
Right.
ships. I ended up putting the John Williams score against it because I was like, I gotta see what it looks like. No, I mean it's interesting. There was no mandate for that. But I think if you even take out the romance angle of that relationship, I think what's interesting about Wonder Woman and Superman and Batman to a degree is that the reason they're the Trinity, the reason that they're kind of the core component of the Justice League, is the respect they have for each other is immense. And the ability to call out that hero, like they know they can rely specifically. I think Wonder Woman knows that she can rely on Superman, and so does Bruce knows that they can rely on Superman to do the right thing. I think that's always a key component of that. I think that Wonder Woman and Batman are a little more pragmatic in some ways, but I think that that Superman is always going to be the one carrying the flag for hope, in all of that. But that was her dynamic in that movie, is she is this kind of beacon of hope amidst all this insanity that's going on.
I dug that. It's really hilarious how you hate Super Wonder, but you end up writing some of those iconic Super Wonder moments. I'm like, oh wow.
Listen, I love teeny bopper romance TV shows too, and eventually, everybody gets a chance at a relationship. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm like, well. And it's in some of it, it's like, it's too bad, not too bad. I'm not going to say this too bad, but it would be interesting to have a world in which all the main superheroes are not paired off, so that you could explore what that might look like now.
Yeah, it's like I'm of the opinion that Wonder Woman should be like completely, for lack of a better term, unencumbered. She should be single, because I feel like they keep trying to push different love interests on Wonder Woman, but none of them really work.
Right. Because you need, I mean, I don't know. I think Wonder Woman is a tall order to. It's an interesting character that can. I feel like sometimes with Aquaman, it's like it's somebody that people don't they just don't necessarily buy the books. That's a weird thing, and I don't know what's going to take.
I think
but absolute Wonder Woman's like going gangbusters.
It's blowing up.
It's blowing up. Yeah. So what am I saying?
I think with Diana, it's the complexity of her character. Our foundation, well, for me, is Perez, and she is supposed to be an emissary of her people, but also, again, with the angle of a feminist, but an immigrant too, and her love is universal. So romance is basically second, or last for her. If she is to have a relationship, basically the foundation, again, this is why we go back to still Superman, is because of what Perez, focused on with that relationship, if it were to had flourished, was Superman still connects with that ideal of a humbled man of power, and and also with the Amazons, because they have this sort of hesitation with men, having that power. So he reflects that as an antithesis for that sort of view. But with Diana's story, and I think that so many writers after Perez kind of try to reinvent the wheel, try to, move her in so many different directions without keeping that foundation that he built. So it's best really to go back to that.
I mean, it's interesting. Someday maybe I'll get the chance to find out.
Please do. But so it's kind of interesting you talk about why the Trinity works. The way I've always considered it, because when you really think about it, Wonder Woman is the most important character at DC. Hear me out on this, because the way I see it, the reason the Trinity works, each of the three represents a component of being a superhero. Superman's hope, Batman's justice, Wonder Woman's truth. Now you can't have true justice without hope, without truth, and truth is like enmeshed with hope. So if everything is undergirded by truth, it makes Wonder Woman the most important hero that DC really has when you think about it, even though they don't treat her as such. But that's
Or
that's me. That's me.
or you can also look at it as, where the Trinity Foundation came from, which was Kingdom Come. Um, and you see Superman as the father, Wonder Woman as the mother, and Batman is basically like the godfather or the uncle. These are the old guards. These are the ones that bring in the newer generation. Um, Even if the story is a little bit darker and how conflicted it was, that is pretty much, again, that foundation for the Trinity. And you also have to have it in the perspective of Diana, because a lot of times the Trinity is looked on as world finest, which is Superman and Batman, and maybe Wonder Woman as a third wheel.
Interesting.
So should
we answer some of these questions before I get out of here?
Sure. I'll ask Robert, and I got one more. So he asks, how hard is it to get ideas to DC, like creating Wade West, being a new child of a hero? How hard is it to get that made? Did Aquaman having a new daughter set a precedent?
Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. With the Wade thing, they already had 2 kids, so having a third, I didn't realize how big of a deal it was. But I had lunch with Mark Waid. I was like, hey, I'm going to make this character. I'm going to name it after you. Is that fine? It was like, I got to say, like, that's such a, legend like thing for me to be able to tell Mark Waid, like, now your name is inextricably linked to this character in ways beyond just your authorship. That one, weirdly, they were like, yeah, sure. And they said, yeah, sure. And then I think there was like a little bit of like, oh crap, what did we say yes to? So sometimes you just kind of throw stuff out there and you just kind of like, you just hope they're going to say yes. It's much better to ask for forgiveness, And so you just push forward with things like the Dan Garrett showing up was a big, we got a big fight about that. And I was like, you told me I could do this. Like, I was so excited because I wanted to do more with the Beatles and stuff. But yeah, it can be really hard. It can be really good too. I think they also have to trust you. And when you're doing a monthly core title, which is a totally different animal, than doing another, not to say it's good or bad, but you're literally going into 50, 60 years of continuity and trying to retain that story and keep that story going, which can be hard. But that one in particular was a layup for whatever reason. So I was pumped about that.
All right. So my last question, and this is a question of your time on the Green Lantern animated series, because I've always wondered this.
Yeah.
Where did the decision to use the Anti-Monitor as like the main antagonist come from? Because I'm always wondering about this. I'm like, okay, so the Anti-Monitor, he blew up the multiverse, but this isn't really a multiverse like story. So I'm wondering how did that like come about?
That's really a question for Jim Krieg and Giancarlo Volpe. They, when I'd walk into their little office and man, they were so good at twisting the knife. They were just like, yeah, we're gonna make Razor and Eye out of it, and we're gonna and I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are brutal.
Then you brought them back in the comics.
Yeah, of course I did. I told Jim, I was like, listen, this may be the only time one of us gets to do this. Like, let me, and he was like, do it. I was like, okay, great. Yeah. Let me see. I saw a couple others. I want to make sure I hit it all. Let's see. Somebody asked about the light. Somebody said Lights Out. Yes, I am going back to Lights Out. Somebody said, why was Parallax in Beyond the Source Wall? He wasn't Beyond the Source Wall. That's a new Parallax. Created by the fear of the other beings that were beyond the source wall, because when the beings went beyond, or during Lights Out, when they go into the source wall, Kyle comes out, and we never really in the book know what happened. So this is me explaining what happened. So if you go back,
the whole idea about the emotional, the like emotional core people going haywire because it's the entities calling for help.
Yeah,
I called a buddy of mine. The minute I read that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense.
It's really fun. Let's see, Jeremy. I don't know if there's a certain versions of how that portrayed him as an arrogant SOB. Yeah, I mean, he's much more like Tom Cruise. That's kind of the vibe that I think he
kind of is. Yeah. He kind of is.
Here's a bunch of anger over Wonderbat. Let's keep moving.
You're on my channel, brother.
And that's okay. I mean, that, like I said, it's totally okay. so let's see. Wade West. I'm like, is there anything else I need to know? I want to make sure I got everybody's questions.
Actually, Cameron just brought in a question. He said, how do you make Hal and Carol work? Because I was introduced to them through Doom, Justice League Doom, the animated movie.
Yeah.
And always thought Hal cheated on her constantly. So how do you write that to an audience that sees Hal as Kirk? Well, for one thing, again, he's not that. That was the part that I really had to drill into Brit when I was showing her Green Lantern comics. I'm like, that's not who he is.
Yeah, like so with me, I always thought of it like a soldier going off to war a great deal, you know, and it was always just like he's gone for a length of time, and that's a hard thing to build a relationship on. But I think Carol comes to a place where she is now doing that, so she understands it more, and they can have that relationship together. And you were going to say the New Guardians, keep reading because New Guardians, Krona, Hal, there's a whole thing going on with them, which I'm excited about. And with the Kyle arc coming up, Kyle is from Los Angeles. Kyle returns to Los Angeles, and shenanigans ensue. So that'll be really fun, and it's more lighthearted. And just to give me a little bit of a breathing room before we get super serialized again. I think Green Lantern, the dynamic of the book gets serialized very quickly. And so I want to pull back a little bit, sort of like what I did with the Flash, and do kind of like smaller things for a little bit before. But the Hal story is significant. I'm not going to lie. It's maybe too significant. It's a big swing. We'll see what happens. I mean, that's not even to mention what's happening on Aquaman, which we're in the third act of what's happening with Aquaman, and that'll be crazy. How was it working on Boss Fight? Boss Fight was funny because Jim Lee, I guess, announced it at New York Comic Con. I was not aware of it. And then a couple months later, like, hey, we know that you are the guy that loves to do anything. Like, correct.
You'll do anything.
And I'm like, that is correct. So they're like, would you do this? And I said, sure. And the great thing is I've worked on a lot of licensed material before. I had done 4 Mortal Kombat movies, so I could call Dominic over at NetherRealm and be like, hey, what can I do and what can I do? But it was it's really more of a showcase for the art, because they gave me like 14 characters and 28 pages.
I was about to ask, how do you juggle all that?
I mean, you do your best you can. You try to give everybody like a quick character moment, and then like a good showcase moment that the artist can really dig their teeth into, like whether it's Red Sonja and Wonder Woman, or it's Homelander and Superman. And you're never going to please anybody all the time. But if you've been reading comic books for a long time, tie-ins, this is kind of what tie-ins are. You know, I tried to make it work within the confines of what they told me I could do for DCKO, and try to make it make sense logically in terms of, he has to stop this battle because they're going to lose if they fight the absolutes. So, you know, let them generate some stuff, and yeah.
Last question. Dave asked, what are your 3 favorite comic book runs of all time, or the 3 most that inspired you as a writer? I take it Jeff Johns' Green Lantern is one of them. I
mean, it was a huge one, but that was a little later on. I mean, for me as a kid, you know, Chris Claremont, John Byrne, X-Men, the Dark Phoenix saga was over the top. The next one was Mark Gruenwald's Captain America No More, when the government said, hey, we own this and you can't do it anymore. And it just hit me at the right time. It was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. The Justice League International by Giffen and DeMatteis and Kevin Maguire. I didn't know comics could be funny.
Really?
And it was so funny, and it was so like the gag where not just Guy Gardner gets punched by Batman, but there's a moment where Guy Gardner loses his ring and like hits his head, and then he's a pacifist for like a year. Like they wrote it for a year. Like it was like, I was like, oh my gosh, the commitment to this gag. They did not bring Guy Gardner back to being a jerk until Lobo showed up later, but I loved it. I loved it.
Sweet. But Jeremy, thank you for coming on the show. You're always welcome. I'd love to pick your brain about that on specifically more Green Lantern.
I love the fact that next time we talk, I'll probably be writing a Superman, Wonder Woman story at some point.
Probably, yeah, probably, and then you'll be calling Brit and I for pointers.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so what can I do with this?
I'll have done it in all the mediums. It's like
every single, or it's like when people are ask me, so who do you think could write Super Wonder? Jeremy Adams. The one thing I will ask: Have you read the Charles Sewell run of Superman Wonder Woman?
I haven't, and I love Charles. He's such a great guy.
Read that.
Okay.
Here's a tease. So there's this great moment. So Wonder Woman brings brings Superman to meet her family, and again, this is when she was the god of war and stuff. So her family is the Greek gods. Apollo, the god of the sun, decides to run his mouth, and he blasts Superman with sunlight.
Oh wow,
and Superman goes, "You don't know that much about me, do you?" Takes him and throws.
All right, don't tell me anymore. Don't tell me anymore. I'll check it out tonight.
You need to. It's read the it's called Power Couple is the trade. It's probably on DC Universe. Or something
I think it is. I think I'll check it out. I'll look up Charles's name.
And
then I'll tell him. I'll see him in Chicago at C2E2. I'll be like, I was told to read this.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, I saw you're going to MegaCon. I will see you there.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'll be at MegaCon, and then I'll be at C2E2 the week after that. So I'm really excited.
Hell yeah! So thank you for coming out. Is there anything you want to promote? Any comics you want to get people excited for?
Just Emperor Aquaman is coming. I've got Nightfall sometime this year. I've got Green Lantern happening. I'm just grateful for the time. So thank you guys.
Anytime, bro. Anytime, bro. Yeah. When Britt and I interviewed Jason J. Lewis last year, he told us, hey, you gotta talk to Jeremy.
Oh, I love Jason. He's the best. Hell yeah.
Stay heroic, everyone. We will see you guys later. Bye-bye.